So, what up, guys? Today, I'm doing the um, course project, the computer programming one. So, the topic that I chose this course project, the problem solving through the flowchart and one and two. The second is handling primitive data types, and lastly, the what about IFS. So, the first is problem solving through the flowchart. What is flowchart? The first flowchart is also called the process flowchart and the process flow diagram. The variations: macro flowchart, top-down flowchart, detailed flowchart is also called the process map, micro map, service map, or symbolic flowchart. Deployment flowchart is also called the across or cross-functional flowchart, the several level flowchart. A flowchart is a picture of the separate steps of a process in sequential order. It is a generic tool that can be adopted for a wide variety of purposes and can be used to describe various processes such as manufacturing process, an administrative or services process, or a project plan. It is a common process analysis tool and one of the 7 basic quality tools. The elements that may be included in a flowchart are the sequence of actions, materials or services entering or leaving the process, and input and outputs, decision that must be made, people who became involved, time involved, and each steps and or process measurements. So, when to use a flowchart? When to use a flowchart is to develop understanding of how the process is done, and to the study of process of environment. The third is to communicate to others how the process is done. And the fourth is excuse me, when better communication is needed between people involved in the same process. And the fifth is to document a process. And lastly, when planning a project. Flowchart basic procedures. This the 6 basic procedures, and there's the considerations. So the basic procedures, it define the process to be a diagram and write it the title on top of the work surface. The second is discuss and decide on the boundaries of your process. Where or when does the process start, or where or when does it end? And you need to decide on the level of detail to be included in the diagram, and brainstorm the activities that take place. Write it on a card, stick note, and etc. The considerations. Don't worry about the drawing, but the right way ultimate identify and involved in the flow charting process. Okay, the people involved with the process. This includes suppliers, customers, and supervisors involved in actual flow charting season by the and this is a consideration flowchart. So these are the example of flowcharts, the high-level flowcharts of the ordering filling process. And the second picture is the detailed flowchart. This is the flowchart, and every plans or works you can make a flowchart to know the process of a works. So there is a data flowchart, order, enter order, the next. Okay, the flowchart in programming. Flowchart is a diagrammatic representation of an algorithm. A flowchart can be helpful for both writing programs and explaining the program to others. These are the use and symbols in flowcharts. Next, the first is the flow line. That indicates the flowchart. That indicates the flow of logic by connecting symbols. And the second shape is terminal, is the stop and the start. Represent the start, the end of the flowchart. The third shape is input output. The description this input output is used for input and output operations. And the fourth shape is rectangle, is the processing used for arithmetic operation and data manipulations. The decision is the diamond shape. Decision is used for decision making between two or more alternatives. Circle or on-page connector used to join the different flow line. The off-page connector used to connect the flowchart portions on a different page. And lastly, process and function represent a group of statements performing one processing task. These are examples of flowchart in programming. The first is the flowchart add two numbers. First is the start. What is the start? Is represent the start and the end of the flowchart. So this. Second is the rectangle. Rectangle is the process. Declare variables n1, number 1, number 2, and the sum with when number 1 and number 2. Sum displayed. The second is flowchart is to find the largest among three numbers. Here, start, follows through. Sometimes it's the yes and no. It depends of the discussion and the works, what the process all about is an out and what is the output of the process, and you need to using this flowchart. Note, the flowchart can be useful writing, analyzing a program. Drawing a flowchart for the complex programs can be more complicated than writing the program itself. Hence, creating flowcharts for complex programs is often ignored. So the second topic is handling primitive data types. So we're in the second the topic. Introduction. Handling data is similar as handling where we store and retrieve them. And computers' data is stored and retrieved in the RAM, the random access memory. Programming language is made this possible through variables. Think of variables as a box where we can store the valuables in them. In the case the valuables, we store within a variables are values, the handling variables. So we handle variables like handle the real world boxes. When we take a box in the real world that we plan to use as storage for our valuables. In programming, we declare the variable when we place our valuables in the box. In programming, we assign a value to the variable. When this assignment is done for the first time, we're initializing the variable when take our valuables out of the box. In programming, we are retrieving its value. Variables. In programming language, when talking about variables, we have the so-called explicit and implicit. What is the pronoun of that word? That's an anonymous variables. is explicit variables are variable that we declare usually at the start of our application before any process is done within. Hmm? They are made as such a way that developers know they will be using a variable within the context of the application. Most programming languages have explicit variables. They have required that variables are to declare before they are used. Implicit variables that use are right away without the need of declaring them. They are referenced using a name. They are made in such a way that they are only allocated some memory when called. They are usable within the context where they are initially used. Most programming languages use the web development and implicit variables. And then lastly, the anonymous variables are variables that are used right away without the need of declaring them. They, however, are not referenced using a name. Only the computer itself knows how to call them. They are typically declared and destroyed after use. Anonymous variables are used during computations. Okay. Next is the data types. So, in this data types, we use variables paired with data types. Data types are the restriction we think of this, like we are segregating our variables that two labeled boxes. The box 1 labeled as Tommy's box when only contain the valuables of Tommy. Box 2 labeled as furniture will only contain the furniture and nothing else like food. Variables behave in the same way like labeled boxes. They are limited to their declared data types. We have two classification for data types. The A is by value, the B is by construct. So this two classification. The A is value and the B is construct. These are primitive data types. Primitive data types in C++ are classifiable. I'm sorry for the pronunciation that. In integers, floating points, and characters. This classification is based on what specific values are allowable. Integers, floating points, and booleans are numerical values, where areas characters are textual values. These are primitive data types. So the integers. These are integers. Integers are values that are numerical in nature. They do not have decimal precision. Some examples of these are counting numbers, including 0. Under integers, we have the regular integer, long and short data types. These are the table 1 and the two show the minimum and the maximum values allowable for the integer values, both signed and unsigned integers values. So this is the picture. You see this picture? So data types, identifier, minimum values, and the last is the maximum. The data types have the regular, short, long. This is the integers, regular integer, short integer, the long integer. I thought this good. So the next is the floating points. Floating points are values that are numerical in nature. They are also sports decimal precisions. Some examples are temperature, body mass, and index and height. Table 3 shows the minimum and maximum values allowable for floating points values. The data types is the float. See that the picture. This kind of the integers here, 1.11, etc. The double, float, double. this the C++. This code, you can see this in the C++ code. Booleans. Booleans values are the values classifiable to either or true or false. They are numerical in nature because the C++ stores them as 0 or a 0 internally. True value for booleans are considered as a non-zero positive integer. Though false value for booleans are considered as 0, they are usually used as flag for specific scenario. They use bool identifier. So these characters. Characters are the only primitive data types that is textual in nature. The regular characters can only represent one character per variable. String can be represented as a series of the character. This why in the programming languages such as C++, a string is declared as an array of characters, and the characters use char identifier, whereas strings as used char valuables. Syntax. The syntax in C++. See, to declare strings in C++, we indicate the maximum number of the characters to be used in the string. For example, if we will need to allocate 50 empty, the characters to contain a string, we will declare using char x50. If we need 55 empty characters, we declare char x555. So this is the some of languages, the integers, how to using the numbers when doing a program. So last our topic, what about IFS? So what is the purpose of else statement in C++? An if else statement controls conditional branching statement, and the if branch are executed only if the condition is non-zero. The following statement gets true if the value of condition is non-zero. The following statement gets executed and the statement following the optional else gets skipped. So the next is, what is the if statement in C++? The if statements allow you to control if a program enters a section of code or not based on whether a given condition is true or false. One of the important functions of the if statement is that it allows the program type to select an action based upon the user's input. So how do if statements work? C++. There's the three numbers and how to use the statement in C++. These are the C++ the following conditional statements. The one is used to specify a block of a code executed if the specified condition is true. The second, use else to specify a block of code to be executed if the same condition is false. And lastly, use else if to specify a new condition to test if the first condition is false. And that's all at the topic that I share with you. So thank you, and that's all, and goodbye.